Hello and welcome to our September edition of Tullie Textiles. And I don't know what it's like where you are, but here it feels like we've just skipped summer this year and gone straight into autumn. However, autumn's a very pretty month, so I'm not going to complain too much. What I thought we'd have a look at this month is making Yorkshire Buttons. And these are traditionally made from wool. And it's a great way of using up scraps. I've got some sock yarn here, but any scraps of wool will work. And make these lovely kind of bobbles, a bit like blackberries, again very good for the season. And they're fairly simple to do. There's a little bit of fiddling around, but they're quite satisfying and they grow quite quickly. As always, we've got our Zoom session later today, so if you're watching this video when it first goes out and you fancy joining us on Zoom, then the details are on my Facebook page. And if you're watching this after the event, then you've got the advantage of being able to pause and rewind as much or as little as you need to. So, as always, I'm going to start off by going through the materials we need. So the first thing you're going to need is a bit of card. We're going to make a little clock face, and this is going to be the template for our buttons. Don't worry if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by the maths to do that. In the first part of the video, I'll show you how to make one of these, but you will need a bit of card, a compass and a pencil or something similar to mark off your numbers, and scissors to cut it out with, not your fabric scissors, obviously. So you're going to need your templates, you're going to need some yarn. I'm using sock yarn, as I say, but any odds and ends will do. You could also do this with embroidery thread. The nice thing about the yarn is that it's a little bit fluffy and fuzzy and it kind of fills in the spaces quite nicely. But use what you've got. You'll also need a yarn needle or a darner, preferably something quite blunt, so a darning needle is perfect, nothing too sharp, something that you can easily thread. A pair of scissors, and you'll also need something to stuff your button with. So this could be a bit of toy filling, a bit of cotton wool, some odds and ends of wool, wool thread, yarn, anything to hand. You don't need a huge amount, just a little bit. So then, without further ado, let's get making. So to start with, we're going to need to make our template. And this is made from fairly sturdy card. You can even use cardboard. If you want to make multiple buttons, it's good to use something fairly sturdy. Paper will be too thin for this, you need card. And the template we're going to be using is 4 centimetres, so it's got a diameter of 4 centimetres, and that will make a button this size, which you can see is just over 2 centimetres, give or take. So I'm using my compass, which has a built-in pencil, but obviously you can use one that doesn't have a built-in pencil as well. So to make our circle, we want a diameter of 4 centimetres, so we want a radius of 2 centimetres. So I'm setting my compass to 2 centimetres. Then I'm just going to spin that round to make my circle. And then I can also use my compass to mark off the points for the clock face, if you like. So to do that, I halve the radius, so I'm going down to 1 centimetre, and then pick a point on the edge of your circle and just mark. So that's my first mark. I then put my compass point into that mark, make the next one, and work my way round. And this will give me my 12 evenly spaced points on my clock face. Chances are you're going to wibble wobble at some point and they won't be totally accurate, but they will be accurate enough for what we want. There we go, so I'm back at the beginning. So you can see I am slightly out, but not massively. We're not going to worry about that. What I'm going to do is just quickly mark on my numbers, because that will make the next bit easy. You don't need to do this bit. I just find it helpful, and particularly when I'm showing you, it will hopefully make things a bit easier. So now what I need to do is to cut this out. And again, sort of be as accurate as you can, but anyone who's watched any of my videos before, ever been on a workshop with me, will know that I don't get too worried about accuracy. Near enough is near enough. Okay, and what we're also going to do at our points, we're going to snip in by about 3 millimeters. So we're not going very far in, we're just making little snips. And the reason for that will become apparent once we start making our button. So what you should end up with is a 4 centimetre circle with 12 points marked on, 12 little snips. We're also going to poke a hole in the middle. So we've got our compass point, which is handily started us off. So then we can just, minding your fingers underneath, make a hole through the middle so it looks even more like a clock face. So the next step is to start making our button. So our first job is to set up the spokes of our wheel. You can see on here. And each spoke is going to have 2 strands. I mentioned that now, you'll see why shortly. So to begin with, what we're going to do is we're going to come up from the back to the front. I'm having the front as the one with numbers on. You don't have to put the numbers on, but I find it does make life easier. And we're going to leave a tail on the back of 10 to 20 centimetres. Doesn't need to be exact, but leave yourself a reasonably generous length. This is what you'll use to attach your button to whatever you make. And we're going to start making our spokes. So to begin with, we're going to go up to the number 12, round the back to 1. So it's kind of like we're making a little stitch on the back there. Okay. And from here, we're going to go diagonally across to 7. And we can tell if we've got the correct diagonal because it will meet in the middle. If we go to 6, for instance, we can see there's a gap. We don't want that gap. We want all the threads to meet in the middle. So we go 7 and behind to 8. So again, like we did before, making kind of a little stitch behind. Excuse me. And then we go back across to 2. Round the back to 3, diagonal to 9, round the back to 10, diagonal across to 4, round the back to 5, diagonal across to 11, and at this point you might panic and think, oh my goodness, it's not going to work, I've missed 6 out. You haven't. Do you remember I said we're going to have 2 threads on each spoke? This is where that comes in. So just before I do the second set of spokes, can you see that I've got a nice amount of tension on here? You want these to be quite taut. We don't want them too loose. So we've just gone behind number 11. What we're going to do is come back at number 12. Okay, and that will make our second spoke. So what we can see at the moment is we've got gaps between our stitches, if you like. So the second round of spokes will fill in these gaps. So from here, we go 12 to 6, so that puts our first spoke in there, round the back to 7, and then we go up to 1, 2, diagonal, 8, 9, and so on. Same as we did for the first round, always making sure that we're meeting in the middle. If we're not meeting in the middle, we've gone to the wrong one. There we go. And what should happen is that your last one you come down to 5 and end up at 6 coming through there. So to check you're correct, you just need to make sure that all of your spokes have 2 strands, apart from number 6, which will have 2 strands when we start stitching. And on the back, it should look like this. So you should have a nice kind of row of stitching around the edge. If you've got one that's trying to escape like that, just make sure that you tuck it in nicely. If you need to deepen any of the snips, do, but don't make them too deep. And then thread up your needle. So what we're going to do now is start the stitching. Okay, so we're at number 6. What we're going to do is we're going to go up over this group of threads in the middle and behind the 2 threads of number 12. And I'm right-handed, so I'm working counterclockwise. I'm going to go round from right to left. This will work if you're left-handed and go the other way. Just do the same thing, but the other way, go clockwise, left to right. So long as you're consistent, it won't matter. I'm going to carry on with the right-handed instructions so as not to add more confusion. So I've come from right to left underneath number 12, and this is the only time we're going under a single set of spokes. Normally, we're going to be working in pairs. So we're now going to set up that pairing motion. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back under 12, again, right to left, and we're also going to go under the next set of spokes, number 11, like that. So what that will do is it will make a little stitch over number 12. And we'll just tuck that in nicely. So again, working in pairs, we're going to go back over number 11, so back over that spoke and under the next one, so working in pairs. If you've ever worked a woven wheel, this is exactly the same. So back over the first spoke and under the next one, working in these pairs. And what you should be able to see is these nice little kind of stitchy bits. This is going to build up really nicely. So back over that spoke and under that one and the next one, working in our pairs. Back stitch over that one, underneath there. Back and under, back and under. The good thing about this, because we've got these little stitches, it's fairly clear if you miss one. So just keep an eye on what you're doing, because you should be able to quickly see if you've missed a stitch. So back stitch over that one and under the next one, working in these pairs. And we're almost round. There we go. So I almost went under the wrong one there. I almost went under that one, but I want to go under the one that I've just come under and then onto the next one. There we go. So now I've got one full round like that. So you can see I've got my little stitch on each spoke. And at this point, I like just to give them a little squidge in, get them nice and tight. And then basically you just keep going round and round and round until this card is full. So we're going to keep doing these rounds of stitches, working over our pairs, back stitching over a spoke and under the next one, back stitching and under the next one, so that we build up this woven wheel affair, like so. Okay, so we're going to just keep going. Give it a little squidge now and then to keep those stitches in. And you can see on this one I'm a little bit further along. You can see how it's building up, but I need to keep going till I'm right at the edge, till I can't get any more stitches on. So let's carry on with our stitching. When you've been round as many times as you can and filled it all in, then we're ready to take it off the template. So what we're going to do is, you can see this one's already wanting to come off. We're going to use the working thread, the rest of the working thread, as a drawstring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hook it through kind of the stitches on the back one at a time and just gently peel them off the template. So I'm just going through the stitch like that, just lift them off. Da, 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 da. So you can see those are kind of the loopy bits on the back. So I'm just making sure that I'm threaded through, because obviously we don't want all our hard work to come undone. So I'm just going through every stitch on the back till I get back to the beginning. Just take those off my template. There we go. So we should have something like that ideally we'd have a smaller gap between there. I probably could have got another couple of rows of weaving in, but I'd lost patience by that point. And I'm in that stitch, so that's fine. So if I draw this up kind of around my thumb, you can see how it's going to become a button like that. And all we need to do is add a little bit of stuffing, something in the middle there, and we'll be ready to go. So I'm just looking around because I forgot to get any stuffing, so bear with me for one moment. There we go. Luckily in this room there's always stuff around, so I'm just using a bit of fluff. And the other thing I should have mentioned, if you need to change yarn, so if your yarn runs out as you're working, you can just tie a new piece on, or you can weave a new piece in. You're unlikely to be able to get a long enough piece of thread to do a whole button. You'll have to have at least one change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck this bit of stuffing, and say you could use a bit of yarn, a bit of cotton wool, a bit of fabric, whatever you've got to hand. And I'm going to finish drawing this up so it's nice and tight, and I'm just using my thumb just to keep that stuffing in the centre. And make sure that you've got that tail end, that first bit of yarn, hanging out, as it were, because what we can do then is just tie those two ends together nice and tightly, and that will secure the stuffing on the inside and secure our threads and give us threads to sew, tie our button on. And there we have our finished Yorkshire button. There we go. And you can see if you stuff it more firmly, you can get a rounder shape if you just put a little bit in. You can have a flatter shape. You could make these over old buttons. So if you've got boring beige buttons or whatever, you could pop one of those in instead of stuffing, and that would again give you a flatter approach. But however you decide to make them and whatever you decide to use, have fun. Let me know how you get on, and any comments, questions or suggestions for future sessions, do drop them in the comments for me. I'd love to hear how you get on, and I will see you next month for more textile fun. Take care, everyone.